All right, we'll introduce our main event now. Everyone, please welcome Ahmed Abdelmageed. I should actually ask how to pronounce that. Sorry. To the Zoom stage. Ahmed is the creator and host of the Ive and Immigrant, a podcast featuring interviews with residents about their experiences living as immigrants in Northeast Indiana. He is a Palestinian, born and raised in Qatar, but he has called Fort Wayne home for the longest amount of time since growing up there. Ahmed came to the US in 2000 and spent many years furthering his education and career here. He earned his Doctor of Pharmacy from Ferris State University College of Pharmacy and was the founding director of experimental education at Husson University of Pharmacy in Bangor, Maine. Ahmed was Assistant Dean of Experimental Education and Community Engagement at Manchester University College of Pharmacy, Natural and Health Sciences from 2011 to 2020. He is a board member of the Indiana Center for Middle East Peace, Muslim Alliance of Indiana, and United Way of Allen County. He has been recognized by Manchester University Community for outstanding service in 2014, Greater Fort Wayne Business Weeklies as 40 Under 40, and Indiana Pharmacists Alliance recipient of the state's Bull of Hygia in 2017. Please welcome Ahmed.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. I am going to try and shift over to my screen. I'm just waiting to be able to share. Give me one quick second. Here we are. All right. Thank you again so much for the invite. And what I'll try and focus on is just a quick, hopefully 20 minutes, and leave a lot more time for question and answer at the end. When Kara and the team reached out about being a speaker and talking within the theme of Underdog, the first thing that came to mind was, a rendition of Alicia Keys' Underdog song. But then I realized that I lack the voice, the looks, the moves, and really any musical talent. So instead, I'm going to stick with that which I know best, which is storytelling. And the story that I hope to share with you today is my journey from a nerdy high school student to a nerdy adult. And the challenges, the experiences, the excitement, the ups and downs of that journey, and then what has that done to my creative outlets and where I am today with what I'm trying to do and what I have learned over those years. So and the reason I want to start with where I've been and lead into where I'm at right now is the quote from the website of CreativeMornings, where it quotes James Baldwin, a letter to his nephew, where he says, "Know whence you came. If you know whence you came, there's really no limit to where you can go." So, and that's something that I got to learn at an earlier age, that if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. And with that, I want to share with you a little bit about where I came from and some of my experiences over the past 24 years, actually, this September. So as mentioned in the introduction, I am Palestinian. My parents were in the hometown of Ive Been, Palestine. My father was about 8 years old. My mom was about 5 when the Zionist forces moved into Palestine, establishing the state of Israel. And so at that young age, they were forced out of their homes. They traveled within Palestine and Gaza for a little bit, and then eventually on the Rafah border closest to Egypt. And growing up there, finishing high school, my father realized that he needs to leave the situation that's there, the occupation and the limits on his ability to grow, and go somewhere where he can start a life for himself. And so he got the passport that you see in front of you, which is a refugee travel document issued by Egypt for Palestinians. And it's really nothing more than an identity card It doesn't grant you any rights of citizenship to Egypt, or actually, funny enough, right in the middle of it, it says the holder of this document is not allowed to enter Egypt without a visa. So a very basic document just to identify who you are and allow you a little bit of travel with countries that would issue you visas. So thankfully, I think around 19 years of age or 20, he had a brother who'd moved to Qatar, and in Qatar he got him a job. So my father moved to Qatar and then moved back to Rafah and married my mom, and the two of them created their life in Qatar. And all my 5 siblings and I'm the youngest of 5, 2 girls, 2 boys. I was the tiebreaker, or as they lovingly call me, the mistake. I came 6 years later, but I say they just kept trying until they had it right. But anyways, I digress. So in Qatar, all 5 of us were born and raised, but Qatar as well does not give you citizenship. You don't naturalize by birth. You're a resident of the country. And if you're not familiar with the laws there, resident means your presence in the country is predicated on the breadwinner's ability to have a job. So as long as my father was employed, we were able to live there. And the moment his employment ends and he can't find another job, we had to leave the country. So we weren't able to own anything. We weren't able to vote. There was no voting actually anyways, and issues like that. So he grew up in a country where I'm very thankful for the experience that I had, because I had free public education, free public health, and all that. But it was not my home country, even though I was born and raised in it. And growing up, there was always that sense of don't bite the hand that feeds you. Don't talk politics, or if you talk politics, don't talk about internal politics. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. You had to kind of live to an extent worried about, I was worried. I remember growing up and as a teenager worrying about if I get into enough trouble that I might drag my parents into it, because at a moment's notice, it could be, they're not going to renew your status, your resident status, and things like that. So my parents knew from early on that all of us had to be educated. All of us had to have a graduate level degree, because that would open the door for us to move around the world, to land somewhere, and hopefully establish a better life and gain citizenship somewhere. So that's where in 1996, and after finishing high school, I joined my brother actually first in the United States in Cleveland. He had just finished dental school from Case Western University. And I joined him as an undergrad student. And then a few months later, my father sends a message saying, hey, you're moving to Canada. We got the landed immigrant status in Canada. So I moved there in 97. And was there till 2000, got my bachelor's in biology and got my Canadian citizenship. And then in 2000, I moved to the United States to study pharmacy, finished up a couple of courses at Wayne State, and then joined Ferris State University in August of 2001. Throughout those 4-5 years of leaving Qatar and coming to the United States, I went through all the things of culture shock. I went from a predominantly Muslim country to a place where there are all faiths, all walks. There are people that don't even believe in the concept of God. And I went from speaking Arabic every day to dreaming in English. And, I got to a point where there are certain terminologies in English that I couldn't translate to Arabic because it was so culturally specific. And so the focus of those years was on understanding myself, who I am, dealing with the stresses of, living abroad, college and all that. And I remember trying to find ways in which I can express, but not, spell my guts out to anybody, just, express to myself what I'm going through. And I did some doodling and sketching, and quickly realized that art is not really my forte in the sense of drawing or anything like that. And again, my journey during that time was mainly focused on who I am and my identity at that point, as an Arab who's become Canadian and an Arab Canadian living in the United States. And on top of that, Palestinian. Not a lot of people know what Palestine is, don't know the history of my people, the struggle, the current struggle of my people. So there were some struggles with trying to understand, how do I relay to others, to my friends, to people in the class, how do I relate to them, again, who I am as a Palestinian, who I am as an Arab, who I am as a person, or as I understood myself to be, and was met with a lot of challenges, either lack of knowledge or lack of my own ability to express myself. And then moving to pharmacy in August of 2001. And on a particular day in September, 2 weeks after I joined the College of Pharmacy, that particular day, as we all probably have guessed, is September 11. I remember sitting in the office of one of my professors, and we were just chatting. And all of a sudden, his phone rings. His face goes completely pale, and he mumbles out to me, "A plane hit the World Trade Center," and it didn't click with me what was going on. I mean, I didn't honestly know the buildings. I haven't been to New York. I just moved to the U.S. a little over a year ago, not really familiar with everything. And as I was leaving his office, I'm like, you know, it was a sad accident, like a small engine plane, you know, veered off and accidentally hit the building. But I walked down from his office and I walked to my lecture hall, and on the big screens, they are playing the video of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center. And at that moment, my heart both exploded and sank at the same time. Exploded for seeing the horrific images unfolding in front of me. And then as I'm reading the ticker and, you know, starting to piece together Muslims, Al-Qaeda, never heard of before, Bin Laden, Islam versus West, and things like that, my heart sank because I understood fully the gravity of what's going on. And I remember leaving the office and going to the door where a lot of the students came from or would come in from. And I singled out every single Muslim and Arab student, and I said, turn around and go home. I said, turn around, go home, stay home. Let's figure out what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Big Rapids is a very small town. We're new to that town. Didn't know how to react, how to do whatever. And I remember then from that moment on, it became crystal clear in my mind that regardless of what I do, I am representing the entirety of the Muslim population. I am representing the entirety of the Arab population. And as I grew older, I'm representing the immigrant population, and the intersectionalities of my identities all came almost crystal clear at that moment. Not that I faced direct hate in that moment. At that moment, everybody, we were coming together. I tried to organize a small blood drive there was a blood shortage at that time too. I worked with others to try and understand how do we move forward. But that moment was a very defining moment for me in who I am and who I am as a member of the broader American society. Move forward over the years, I got married to my wife, got my citizenship, work as a pharmacist, work in academia, but always with that thought in my head of how do I relay to others what my religion teaches, what my culture teaches, how do I combat negative imagery from whether media outlets or whether particular hateful voices that wanted to do that, and how do I counteract it from within the young Muslim community growing up not realizing how to, how to say that this is not us. And over those years, I found that my ability is in storytelling, in talking about and humanizing the label. And that's really where my focus, or I would, if you want to think about any sort of creativity, where my creativity comes in, is in trying, or in humanizing the label, in humanizing what a Palestinian means. Because, as human beings, we're conditioned to, a label means something. And whether positive or negative connotations with a certain label, when it pops in your head, you think of a particular thing. And to me, I found that the word Palestinian, the word Muslim, and more recently, over the past 5 years, the word immigrant, have become very negatively associated, or associated negatively in a lot of different ways. And so how do I teach others about myself, my culture, my religion, all of that, without one, buying into the frame of mind of the person who is saying all Muslims are terrorists, for example? Because if I start by defending that claim, I've already bought into that claim, and I'm on my back heels trying to defend something that I know is untrue, but it's an uphill battle. And that, I think, where the theme of Underdog comes in, when you're trying to combat that. So instead, what I found that the best way is for us to connect on the human level. What I say in the I, an Immigrant podcast is, we've lost the art of conversation. How to ask questions without defense, how to answer questions without being or becoming or sounding defensive. So going back to the basics of getting to know each other on the human level. And so my talks, whether I'm talking about Islam, I do the basics of introduction to the religion, and people understand how close, at least the Abrahamic faiths are. I talk about, peace in the Middle East from the perspective of, my father experienced that. I experienced the consequences of it. And we talk about the human aspect of it, because then you start, as the other person listening in, you start, I think, moving a little farther away from what that label, what you've been conditioned, or what you've been accustomed to associating with that label, and start thinking more about, hold on, let me actually connect with the person who I know, who's in front of me, or who I speak with, or who I talk to, or who I consider a friend or an acquaintance, and know them on that level more so than on, what I hear or what I may read in different, or in other places. So I want to keep it short. I know I'm not talking a whole lot, but for the theme of Underdog, again, if we want to think about from that website that we went to, an underdog questions and expands what's considered possible. And my mission over the past 4 or 5 years in particular has been humanizing the label. And at times it may seem like it's impossible. I've been told by many around me that, nobody cares. Nobody's going to want to listen to your story as an immigrant. They just want to keep going. And the they is so broad and so non-discriminatory. I hear it from my own people. If I'm hanging out with Arab friends sometimes and having a cup of coffee, and they'll be like, they'll never consider you a friend. Or you'll never be American enough. Or if I'm talking with American friends about this or that or the other, and it's just so isolating, and so, we've become so secluded in our own echo chambers that it seems impossible. But really, all it needs is simple conversations, simple discussions, and getting to connect with each other on the human level. So all in all, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the love and support that you're showing. Please show us some love on the I, an Immigrant. Thank you, Katie Anderson. She's on the call, for taking my crazy idea and running with it. And Ben, I show you some love too. You've edited a couple of our episodes. We just released our final episode yesterday for season 1. And the whole reason, again, behind the I in Immigrant is understanding the person behind the label, and understanding them on the human level, understanding that I share the same concerns that you have about your kid's future, my kid's future, about my parents' health, about paying too much taxes, all of that. But on top of it, I have added layers, whether missing the place that I called home for a while, or family being scattered all over, or worried about certain policies that are going to come through the pipelines that are going to impact me directly, or my children, or my people. And so I'll stop talking, because I'm an academic, and if you give me a platform, I'll just keep talking. So thank you so much. I hope this makes sense. I hope you understand what I'm trying to connect with. And I want to leave the remainder of the time for you to ask any and all questions, because God forbid you go home and search it on Wikipedia. We don't do that.
Thanks so much, Ahmed. That was awesome. It was so great to hear from you and learn a little bit more about you. I see you a lot around town, and it's neat to learn your background, and I'm excited to listen into the I Am Immigrant podcast more. It's great. So yeah, thanks for your time today. I'm going to turn it over to Colin here to do some questions for us. So Colin, if you want to unmute yourself and hop on.
Yes, I am here. Okay, so the first question is from our own Kara. Ahmed, how have you been processing the pandemic and racial unrest as a person of multiple global cultures in Fort Wayne?
Oh, that's a great question. The pandemic itself, I'm thankful at least to have my family and great neighbors around us, and more of an open space that we can still meet outside and have somewhat of a social life. The thing that gets me from that perspective is that about 2 weeks before everything shut down, or 2 weeks after everything shut down, I was supposed to take my parents to Qatar. They live in Michigan now, to visit with families, and we were unable to do that. And who knows when we'll be back to that. So that impacted me in that sense. I was looking forward to visit family and friends too. The racial unrest, it's not new, unfortunately. Not the unrest itself. The unrest, I think, is a product of what's been going on for quite a long time. And I think what is coming to light is and I'm going to be blunt, is the fallacy that we have come to believe that we're a post-racial society, especially after the election of Obama. And I find it especially, irritating, but within my own generation. I'm 42, and a lot of people are like, what are we talking about? We're a post-racial society. I have, black friends, or, we elected Obama. I'm like, but do you not realize that history does not stop, nor does it start just with you and your perspective? I mean, we're talking about, if I'm 42, the youngest of 5, my father is almost 80. And if I'm talking to you and we're similar, your father is 70, 80, he lived in a time where discrimination was in the books, was part of policy. It doesn't go away overnight. And so the unrest that we're seeing, I think, is coming from that systemic racism, although it's not necessarily blatant as, whites only, blacks only, but it still has a lot of roots in what we're doing. And it's coming to head in a lot of issues that we're seeing. And we have become very divisive politically, and especially in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's not to say that Trump is the problem. I think Trump is a symptom of the bigger issue, of an undercurrent of hate, an undercurrent of supremacy, an undercurrent of a lot of things that we have not come to terms with as a society, as a country. And I think now we're starting to, and it's going to be a while before we can heal a lot of these things.
Wow. Powerful thing, powerful stuff. This is a little bit lighter. Besides the I and Immigrant, what is your favorite podcast? And this is from Katie.
Okay. I don't know. What's the name of the podcast that Katie produces? Quick. I like a lot of NPR's work. Hidden Brain seems to be my favorite. But on road trips, actually, with the kids, there is, oh my God, I'm blanking on, Guy Raz does a little kids one. I'm blanking on the name of it.
The World of Wow.
Yes, thank you. A Wow in the World. And I'll admit, I love listening to it myself too, because it's just cute, informative, and they enjoy it.
Okay, this is from our very own Devante. How do you feel like we can educate others in terms of humanizing the perspectives around immigration/immigrants?
I go back to stories. I go back to talking. And I mean, the conversations are not one-sided. I mean, it's not all on the person who's a non-immigrant to have those conversations. It has to be both ways. But it goes back to conversation. Are we able to, again, connect on? You don't start a conversation with someone with, hey, what do you think about the recent ban approved by, maybe if you've known each other for a while. But I think a lot of it is just the simple conversations, just knowing what we share. And we have a lot to share. I mean, if you're born and raised in the United States, you have a lot to share as well. But it's just getting away from considering that as such a foreign concept that I don't understand. They're still a human being, and have that simple conversation with them. But they have those added layers, and they'll share it with you at the time that they feel comfortable and at the time that they feel that this conversation is a heart-to-heart conversation.
This is from our very own Ben. Not asking you to pick a favorite moment, but what is a moment from the first season of The I and Immigrant that spoke to your heart in a way you didn't expect?
Oh, that's a good question. There was a lot of great moments that I connected with all of our speakers. Probably the moment I think that sticks in my mind most is when I was talking to Oleg from Ukraine, and he was talking about, he's a hustler, he's doing this, he's doing that, and you get the tough guy impression from him that I can make it anywhere and I can make it happen. And then we get to talk to his parents, and he tears up a little bit. And that to me connected on a lot of, I haven't lived with my parents or haven't been able to see them very often for 24 years. In the past 5 or 6, when they moved to Michigan, we had more, or when I moved closer to Michigan, we've had better connections, and, nothing that we have any bad relationships, but just the distance. And to me, that I think tugged at my heartstrings a little more.
This is from Steve. When people say it is useless, how do you stay motivated to keep at your goal?
I try to shut out negativity. I mean, from having done this so many times, I mean, I feel like I'm always on display, and I'm good with that. I've come to terms with that's something that I have a knack for. I'm able to do. I'm going to continue to do it. But over those years, I've come to realize or understand when a conversation is being had for the sake of engaging and learning and discussion, and when it is just for someone to state a point or to try and deflate me or whatever, and I just walk away. I just don't engage in those conversations, because if you're coming at me with it's useless, or all immigrants are, stealing our jobs, or this or that or the other, with such force, and I poke, and I don't see way for me to have that conversation with you, I'm not going to convince you. But that's not and again, I want to also point out that that's not the overwhelming majority. We might think, and we might see it in our, Facebook feed or Twitter or whatever, but it's not the overwhelming majority. The overwhelming majority of my experience has been with people that I have no clue. Can you tell me? Can we talk about this? And I welcome those conversations, and the other ones I just no, don't take from my bucket, as my kids would say.
Okay, and our last question for the day. What challenges do you think Fort Wayne still faces in inclusivity for immigrants and refugees?
Fort Wayne, so I'll talk about Fort Wayne a little bit. I've been here for 9 years now. It is the longest I've lived anywhere since leaving Qatar. And my journey with Manchester came to end this past June. Actually, last May, they told me this is the last year, budget issues, they're not renewing. My administrative with a faculty rank, you're still on a contract, annual contract. So they said this is the last year, and we're not going to renew your contract budget-wise. So over that year, I have 11 years of academic experience. I can take it and go somewhere else. But my wife and I kept going back to, we really love Fort Wayne. We love what we've built here. I love the fact that I'm able to do this and share in different creative ways, that I know a lot of people around that I'm able to speak to, that I'm able to present. And aside from just having great public schools and safety and all of that. So we've decided that we're going to try and make Fort Wayne work regardless. So now I'm back working with CVS full-time as a pharmacist. But all that to say, my journey in Fort Wayne, what I've learned about it, and I've come to love, is that on the journey of diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity, we're probably at the very early stages. We still have a long way to go in terms of equity, but I see all the right steps being taken or attempted to be taken. We're moving in a direction that I'm excited about, that I want to be part of. But I think we still struggle as an overall city with talent retention. We do talent acquisition. We can bring people to town, but we can't seem to keep them here, and especially if they're from the diverse background. So that's kind of where I'm thinking the next leg of my career is going to shift, is to focus on more on that, to retain talent and diverse talent in Fort Wayne, because it's such a great city. We love it here.